This is Theology Bits, a ministry of Central Lutheran Church, Eugene, Oregon. I'm Pastor Ben. This video will begin a sequence of several videos on the topic of stewardship. Stewardship is one of those terms that we use, usually in the fall, as we talk and plan for these next year's activities. And frequently in the fall, when there's a stewardship campaign, we're talking about finance. But to be very clear and absolutely upfront, in case anyone was confused, stewardship is not finance. Yes, we are stewards of many things, and our money is one of the things that we are stewards of. But stewardship itself is something different. In fact, probably the best depiction of this, which is frequently described as what is stewardship? It's everything after a person says, I believe. Everything after that is stewardship. We're going to talk about why. Another, maybe more traditional theological word for it would be sanctification, meaning, in Lutheran terms, we are justified by the faith we've been given, totally separate from anything we do, and then we live the sanctified life. And the living the life would be stewardship. Probably a more contemporary word, of course it's a very old word, but it's used more contemporarily, would just be discipleship. I will probably use this last term, discipleship, as this week we're going to be talking about the relationship between discipleship and generosity. But these are different terms, really, for what we would call simply stewardship. How do you properly take care of, manage? The word stewardship, by the way, comes from the management of a household. How do you manage this life that you live as a Christian? Another way to think about it is that this is a response to God, and specifically response to God's grace. Grace is something that is given to people as a gift. That's how it's given. Grace is something that God does totally separate from anything that we do and that we receive. And when we receive this, then that elicits a response. How do we respond? And you can use, again, it's another term for this. We respond by living the life of faith, by being disciples of Jesus. And I bring, you could also simply think this is our way of showing gratitude, of giving thanks to God. And really quickly, I just want to point out that gift and response go together. That is to say, when a gift is given, there is a response. It's complicated because for a gift to be a gift, it doesn't require a response. But for a gift that really is useful in one's life, there is a response, there is a reaction elicited by the gift itself. The gift leads to a response. It could be gratitude, it could be action. Gifts can empower action. And so we have here a fundamental just idea of stewardship as response, as the life we lead. And so this is where it gets to, what does it mean to be a disciple of Christ? There's a lot of things that go along with being a disciple of Christ. There's a lot of things involved in sanctification, in a life of discipleship. One of those things, though, is generosity. That being a disciple of Christ, then there will be various fruits of the Spirit that Paul speaks of. And these are helpful to think of because it's that idea of a fruit is something that grows from the tree. The tree doesn't choose to grow the fruit, it just happens. If the Spirit is within you, then out of it bears that fruit. And so it's a wonderful metaphor. But this generosity, which isn't formally listed as one of the fruits of the Spirit, but it fits beautifully within that structure. And so we have a structure of stewardship. And I've called this generosity as a component of discipleship because when we've often talked about our offerings before God, what we often think of is, what do we provide in an offering? Well, usually a reflection of the blessings we've received. And especially if you're talking about this church offering and financial offerings, but any number of offerings we provide and give back to God are because of the things we could do well. Could be our time, could be our money, could be our talents, could be our community. But they're the blessings we've received. So you have that, we give thanks for the gifts we have, and then we respond. And that's usually how people think of offering. Though I would suggest what Paul talks about in Romans 12 is not just that the offering are the material blessings we have, or indeed our time, because after all, those are the most fleeting things we have, but instead what do we really offer is our own selves. We are the offering. What is the real response to God's grace? Is to just say, I am here, Lord. That the wholeness of our bodies, our own life, this is the response to God. That's what it means to be a disciple. It's not a small part of, well, we have a little bit of generosity here or there, but it's our life. Our life is the response. Well, that would include both our blessings as well as our challenges. That all of that is offered to God. That the generosity here includes generosity of our blessings, but also, if you can use the phrase, the generosity of our challenges, because it leads to community. We bring our blessings to the table before one another. We also bring our challenges to the table before one another. And as a community together, we support one another. Both blessings and challenges. Because discipleship and generosity are tied together by being one for others. Meaning, I myself do not stand or do not try to stand independently. I am someone for others. The more traditional language of that, be a servant leader. That is, if we are going to lead at all in anything, then we are going to do it by serving others. And so we have here that part of discipleship, part of following Jesus is generosity. It includes giving, but it also includes simply being in community. There is someone to whom it is necessary to give. So thereby, community is where this connects. One imagines, for example, the radical generosity within the book of Acts in the community in Jerusalem only works because of the connection of that community itself. Stewardship is everything I do after I believe, and the one thing that I must do after I believe is connect with other believers. That's what living a life of discipleship is. And so stewardship is as much relationship as much as it is responding to God vertically. If you were to break it down in the traditional, vertical and horizontal acts of, if this is God, this is me, and here are where everyone else is, that is the real response to God is not give thanks to God and we have a little conversation. It's the way this works outward. That the response to the gifts I've been given is how I reflect them outwardly in my community, because stewardship is relationship. This has been the first video on stewardship. More to come. This has been Theology Bits. I'm Pastor Ben.